Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all, wherever you're tuning in from. And welcome to the 2022 Travel Retail Sustainability Week, and indeed to this first keynote session of the week entitled People and the Planet, Taking Sustainability to the Next Level. Thanks to all of you for joining, and of course, thanks to all our speakers who will be introducing themselves in the next few minutes. I'll be joined in this session by my esteemed colleague, Charlotte Turner, who will also introduce herself in a couple of minutes. I'd like to just start by saying a big thank you also to our headline sponsor, Mars, for sponsoring this whole event. And of course, the sponsors of this session, who are Mars, Diageo, and JTI. Of course, without the support of all our sponsors, this event would not be possible. We make this a complementary event to really reach as many of industry stakeholders and spread the message about what's going on sustainability in our industry as far and wide as possible. So it's great to have all those sponsors supporting us. And there you can see them on the screen there, I hope. We will do in a few seconds. So this event, as you're probably aware, was launched last year in the middle of the pandemic in April 2021 to mark Earth Day, April the 22nd. And it's the only event that's dedicated in our industry uniquely to sustainability. We don't talk about mags and margins or anything that you normally hear about in industry events. It's all about what the industry is doing, whether it's airports, retailers, brands, and external partners, on how to make this industry more sustainable. The objective of this event is really to share ideas, share initiatives, both current ideas as well as projects in the pipeline. And we want to use this event, like we did last year, as a springboard for further collaboration and creativity in areas that your company may not have already embarked upon. So what we try to do is bring new concepts and potential partners from outside the industry, as well as to hear from industry stakeholders, as you will. Last year, if you recall, one of our keynote speakers was David Katz, from the Plastic Bank, and we brought in himself and others from outside the industry. And this year too, we have a number of fresh faces for the industry, for you, including in this session, as you'll discover. This year, we've also brought in a broader scope of topics under the sustainability umbrella, with more corporate social responsibility issues, as you'll hear about in the diversity and inclusion webinar and the health and wellbeing webinar. So we've got a great program and speaker lineup for you over the next few days. Later today, after this keynote session, we'll have the green design session. Tomorrow, we've got those two health and wellbeing, diversity and inclusion sessions. On Thursday, we've got a session on circular solutions, on recycling, upcycling, and so on. We've got another session on the future of food. And finally, on Friday, we have a session on the spirits, liquor and wine and liquor category, as well as a two-part closing keynote session called Green Influencers, combining people, planet, and purpose. And that will be in the morning and in the afternoon. So a packed agenda for you there, and we hope you'll be able to join for as many of these sessions as you can. Of course, don't forget we have two of the sustainability pitch sessions also on Wednesday and Thursday this week, with Altavia, Gonzalez Baez, and Mondelez and Nestle in the first pitch tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. on Wednesday, and L'Oreal, Mondelez, Moroccan Oil, and New Wave vying for the travel retail trailblazer or travel retail sustainability hero status this year again. So do participate actively in all the sessions. And of course, you can use the Q&A function to put your questions to our speakers, and you'll see that on the right-hand side of the screen that you're watching right now. We'll be monitoring those questions as they come in throughout the session. So please do put your questions to our panel of speakers. That's it from me now. I'll hand over to my colleague, Charlotte, who will introduce our speakers or get them to introduce themselves. Over to you, Charlotte. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comprehensive introduction, Michael, and hello to everybody watching, and hello, of course, to our esteemed panel. Thank you so much for being involved today. It's just a testament to how much this topic and the surrounding topics, excuse me, have become so important to our industry. Now, just before I move to our panelists to introduce themselves, I just wanted to provide a bit of context. There's a lot of scary statistics out there, as I'm sure you're all aware, and we read them every day about the climate change and how fast our planet is degrading. However, I believe it's part of the travel retail industry's job to clarify our position and what part we all play in trying to reduce the impact. And of course, there are so many companies, many of which are involved this week in trying our best to reduce our impact. And we're going to hear so much more from travel retail companies, as well as those companies from outside our industry that can help us in order to do that, and also help us and communicate those new initiatives to the rest of the world, to prevent people from thinking that the travel industry and the tourism industry are responsible for the majority of emissions, which of course they aren't, but sometimes it feels like we are blamed for that. And part of clarifying the travel retail industry's impact and our initiatives in order to reduce that impact, we actually held a global industry survey. We always do every year. We have done for many, many years in January. And as part of that, we have a sustainability element. And I was really pleased to see how many responses we got in for the survey, and of course, sustainability questions as well. Just over 100 companies gave us their really, really important feedback. And it was great to see that as progress from the year before, the majority said that their companies were taking action to reduce their environmental footprint, with 40% at the absolute maximum threshold at 10 for strongly agreeing that they were actually taking this action, which is very impressive. But it was interesting to see that the many respondents believe that, interestingly, not as many were as confident that consumers are willing to pay more for sustainable products. This is a very interesting topic, and I'm sure one that we'll touch on in today's session, again, throughout the week as well. So without further ado, I will now go to our speakers and ask them to introduce themselves, because they're much better placed for doing that. So Renzo, I'd like to come to you first. Could you please introduce yourselves to our audience?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for having us in this webinar today. So my name is Renzo Radice. I'm head of corporate communication, public affairs, and also implementation of ESG at Dufry.
We lost you just a little bit at the end there, Renzo. So if you could just re-emphasize what you said just at the end there.
Yes, so I'm the
Okay, I think we might have to work out there might be something wrong with your sound there, Renzo, but we'll come back to you in a minute and we'll try and rectify that. Melanie, if you could please introduce yourself, please.
Yes, hello everyone. So thanks for having me and having Lagardère Travel Retail in this session. So I'm in charge of, I have two positions within Lagardère Travel Retail. So my first and initial position was the head of the Foodservice business line. So for 6 years now, and for a little bit from 1 year, I'm also in charge of sustainability for the three business lines, and I will be happy to share our strategy with you.
Thank you, Melanie. And now Marcus.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Absolute pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation, also for Mars to really be involved in this Sustainability Week. My name is Marcus Hudson. I'm currently leading the ITR business, International Travel Retail, on behalf of Mars, reporting into our Dutch Market Plus ITR business unit based in the Netherlands. I've been in that role since January this year, so I'm quite new to that leadership position and quite new to really being a spokesperson for Mars in such as these events. So again, thank you for that opportunity. I started my career actually with BAT in travel retail back in 2007, spent a few years in travel retail then, and then after a couple of years out, came back to our beautiful channel back in 2016. I've been working with Mars in travel retail since then.
Thank you, Marcus. And Tessa, I'm delighted to also introduce you. Our audience might not be quite as familiar with you.
No, probably not. So hi, everybody. I'm Tessa, co-founder and CEO of Olio. Olio is an app that exists to tackle the enormous problem of food waste in our homes and also in our local communities. And so we do that by connecting people with their neighbours and also by connecting volunteers with local businesses so that surplus food can be given away, not thrown away. So we've now got a global community of just under 6 million people have joined Olio, and we've had food and other household items successfully shared in 63 countries so far.
Thank you, Tessa. I look forward to hearing more from you later on. Renzo, hopefully we can hear you a little bit better this time. Obviously, a big part of TL Sustainability Week is sharing best practice and how companies are already implementing initiatives in order to reduce their carbon emissions, reduce food waste, reduce water waste, whatever it might be, reduce single-use plastics. There are so many initiatives we'll talk about. I was hoping that you could give our audience a clearer picture of what Dufry's sustainability strategy is currently and how it's perhaps developed in recent months.
Okay, so let me start with a short overview, because at Dufry we like to look at sustainability from a rather holistic view. So we have tried to group the different initiatives into 4 main focus areas. One is customer focus, which then addresses all the topics which are in, let's say, in direct contact with the customer. Then we have obviously protect the environment, where we group all the initiatives where we can have an impact on reducing our footprint. And then we have employee experience, very important for us, and also an area where we made huge progress in 2021. And then last but not least is also what we call trusted partner, where we basically group all the initiatives where we are in contact with airports, suppliers, governance, and try to improve the approach which we have with those partners and the collaboration. And in 2021, just to focus maybe on the most important ones. So in the area of customer focus, we introduced what we call the Sustainable Product Identification Initiative. This is basically an initiative that labels products according to 7 criteria in the shop and helps customers to identify sustainable products. And this initiative has been deployed in 128 airports and over 170 shops. Then for us, the major step was also in the area of protecting the environment, where we defined emission reduction goals going forward. We included all the 3 scopes, so covering the initiative, the emissions which we generate ourselves, but also those that are generated for us through third parties. And we are just about to also submit our commitment letter to SBTi, so that these targets we have defined will become, let's call it, official. Then, as I said before, in the area of employee experience, we engaged a lot in diversity and inclusion. We have added function as dedicated function in the group executive committee. And then towards the end of 2021, we have done a dedicated D&I survey covering 70% of our employees. And that gave very good and valuable insights on where we can improve. And it was good to see also the first high level of participation, but also the open and willingness of voluntarily providing us with D&I data, with demographic data on how our employees, let's say, classify themselves. And then the last area, trusted partner. The main activity was the recertification of our supply code of conduct, which is now the second time which we do it on. We have a 3-year cycle where we repeat the certification, and we have rather expanded well this year or last year the reach of this recertification, and we cover now 56% of our purchasing volume. So those are the 4 say major activities which we have done in 2021.
Thank you, Renzo. I'll come back to you on some of the ways in which you've had to, work towards those certifications, because I can't imagine that's an easy process. But I'm going to switch over to Melanie now and just get from Lagardère's perspective, if you can elaborate on the pillars of Lagardère's sustainability strategy.
Yes, for sure. And maybe also to do that, I will share my screen so that it will be a little bit more visual than only me. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, Melanie.
Perfect. So maybe just first a short reminder about so who we are, because it will also help, I think, all of you to understand also our journey and what we are doing. Well, first, maybe in a few figures. So important to keep in mind that we are in the five regions now, and 5 continents, because we have opened soon also in South America and Africa. So 42 countries. So important because that means that we are also facing many different situations, many different level of maturities, depending on the countries. So important to keep in mind. Also, we are in both in airports and in railway and metro stations. So again, it's these channels are very different, and of course, obviously, airports have are more also working maybe on these topics and more challenged on sustainability than railway and metro stations, but it's different topics and priorities, I would say. And most importantly, I also wanted to highlight that we are working, we are acting on these 3 main activities in airports when it comes to retail and food, so travel essentials with relay, duty free, and food service. So that means that it's really something a little bit complex and heterogeneous that we have to deal with when it comes to sustainability. So to answer a little bit more precisely to your questions or about our pillars, so we have, as Renzo, we have 4, not exactly the same, but at the end of the day, we are, I think, addressing the main topics. So our interesting to notice that so our strategy is named internally so PEPS. So with the name of our 4 pillars, so planet, ethics, people, and social. And for each of these pillars, so we have 3 commitments. So at the end, it comes to 12 commitments with so clear definitions, clear targets, and clear KPIs too that we are monitoring at least on a semestrial basis. So these targets, you can see a few of them here. I won't go too much into the detail, but also so thinking about what Tessa was saying. So of course, waste is also on the top of our agenda when it comes to planet, as you can see. And so all our pillars, they have these targets. Maybe to go a little bit more into the detail, on each of these pillars. So when it comes to planet, here, as you can see, we have 3 main objectives. And the first one, obviously, is the reduction of our carbon emissions. We have been through a very deep and large carbon footprint assessment last year. So on all the scopes, so the direct emissions and our indirect emissions. And so we have worked very hard on this one to really precise our carbon reduction strategy. And we are very happy today also to be able to disclose, and because it's the first one to learn that we are going to commit ourselves to contribute to global carbon neutrality by the end of 2023. So carbon neutrality here, it means scope 1 and 2 through our direct emissions. So as you can see, something very, very ambitious. All our countries are working these days very hard on these topics to switch to green electricity, to engage also all our partners and our landlords to be on this journey for us. And of course, we have also launched many initiatives to reduce our energy consumption. So on planet, very ambitious targets, target 2. Maybe I won't go too much into this detail, but of course we have some very concrete example on this one, but maybe we will tackle this one a little bit later. So on a concrete example of what we have done in Geneva. So very concretely, it means that now we are able to build some stores with 40% less carbon emissions than a classical one. And it's a test we have done a few months ago. So our second pillar is ethics. So on this one, so we are working hard on the products themselves, so developing local products, local sourcing. A few, again, some very concrete example of what it means for us. For example, in Palermo, duty free, so in Sicily. So we have done many partnerships, local partnerships with some producers. And so now we have 60% of our sales that are done from products, from Italian products, and half of this market share is even done by Sicilian products. So it means that, again, working hard on local products, local sourcing, reducing the carbon footprint of our products, and also working with our communities. Same in France, we are able now to, when it comes to food, to propose 80% of our assortment with products coming from France for our internal brands. If we go now to people, again, here we have different programs, and I think someone from our team, Kathleen Fox, will be speaking about that on Thursday. So on diversity and inclusion, we are working on that. Maybe a little bit more. We have been pushed also by our American branch, Radice Lagardère. So they are doing many things on this one with the diversity and inclusion committee too, and I'm sure she will disclose many information also about that. And also we are also tackling that with thanks to the employee engagement, and so we are currently rolling out the Gallup survey in all our countries. For the time being, it's in 11, and it will be in 100% at the end of the year. For our fourth pillar, the last one, but of course not the least, so social. So our teams are very involved in everything coming to supporting the local communities. And as you can see, they have been able to donate and to raise funds for more than 1.5 million euros since 2019, with a lot also of volunteering done by our teams all over the world. In a nutshell, I would say, what we are doing on our 4 pillars.
Thank you, Melanie. I wanted to move on to Marcus now to provide the supplier perspective.
Very good. Thank you very much. Just to position Mars a little bit in this context, I mean, we have a vision that the world that we want tomorrow starts with how we do business today. And this is really the essence of our sustainability approach. What we do now is impacting our future. And underneath this, we have sort of a focus area on constantly transforming our operations and our supply chain to ensure that the people and the planet thrive. And this is really a never-ending journey that we will go on. obviously our cocoa supply chain is very vital within that, and that is a big pillar of what we do. I think many might know, and particularly the retailers that we have the opportunity to work with, you know, Mars is has a foundation based on our 5 principles of quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and freedom. And, you know, this was set up by the Mars family many years ago. And it's really the mutuality principle that actually is a foundation of how we look at our responsibility on sustainability, you know, and this really gives us kind of a special obligation to ensure that, you know, what we are doing, we are managing the impact that we have on the people and planet as much as possible. You know, the scale of Mars is huge. We have about 140,000 associates around the world. And also when we look at the business units that we work in, we obviously have the confectionery element, we have pet care, we have veterinary health, and we have food. And our sustainability approach actually covers all of these. And another thing that we do have as Mars is one of the benefits of being a private family-owned company of such scale is we do have the opportunity to take a scale approach, but also a generational approach. So, you know, we do really try to look on the longer term. In 2017, we launched a program called our Sustainable in a Generation program. And this is really a commitment from the Mars family to invest $1 billion over 10 years, so 100 million a year, actually into our sustainability approach. And this has 3 pillars to it. There's firstly our people approach, which is really around making sure everyone can thrive, everyone in the world impacted by Mars. So within this, there is a whole pillar around empowering women and communities, linking into our diversity and inclusion work that we do. There is a big area around the work that we do on protecting children and expanding our child labor monitoring and remediation systems that we have. So that's really the people pillar. We have a planet pillar, which is really around evolving over time with probably a never-ending journey to ensure we're reducing the environmental impacts that we have on the planet, and in line with what science is saying is necessary to keep our planet healthy. And there's a lot of work that we do underneath this with our net zero emissions commitment by 2050 for our global supply chain, now our global operations that we're working on, and also a lot of work they're doing on preserving forests as well, sitting within that and working on deforestation. There's also a portfolio piece, and this is also where the work that we do in health and well-being comes into this, actually really under that portfolio, to ensure that the products that we are producing and how we market them and how we engage with them is actually contributing to a healthier planet with healthier people. And again, there's a lot underneath that we can dig into. One of the elements also that, as I mentioned, very central to our sustainability program is really around obviously this cocoa supply chain. And actually in 2018, when really the relevance of this became extremely clear, we launched another program on top of our sustainability in the generation program, which is our Cocoa for Generations. And this was another commitment from the Mars family to again invest an additional $1 billion over 10 years actually into the cocoa supply chain, really looking under 2 pillars within cocoa. First, about responsible cocoa, so ensuring 100% of our cocoa is responsibly sourced by 2025, and that's a journey that we're going on. And also in terms of sustainable cocoa, so this is all around what initiatives can we put into place to accelerate the modernization of the cocoa sector. So as mentioned, you know, if you look at the program of Mars when it comes to sustainability, I think few things are really, it's a generational based approach. We really take a longer term approach, and that's really what we try to do. We try to do everything at a scale, you know, so if you look with 140,000 associates, and actually one of the stats that I heard a few years ago is the footprint of Mars is the same as equivalent as a country like Panama of an individual organization. So this is really where that scale enables us or actually forces us to take that responsibility, and that's something that we very much try to take on board.
Thank you very much, Marcus. It's really interesting to hear how the business in scaling up is again, I'm sure, one of the challenges as well as one of the ultimate benefits as well. Renzo, I wanted to return to you actually. You mentioned a lot about some of the certifications and some of the initiatives that Dufry has brought on board. And of course, we all know that Dufry is a huge global company. And again, it can't be easy to bring about these sort of initiatives and implement them in stores as well. I just wanted to see if you could give us a few more details about the journey that Dufry have been on since it has decided to obviously increase its sustainability commitments.
Yes, so I mean the scale is always an issue. That's correct. And I mean, what we try to do from our side is always to build also a sustainable process, because I mean, we cannot do this alone. So we need the support of the suppliers and also the airports when we work together. And I mean, just taking the example of defining our reduction goals for the emissions, it also took us 1.5 years to really gather all the data from all the airports and other landlords where we are present. Sometimes the process is very basic, because you need to get that number, and who is going to provide you that number? Is it correct? Is it not correct? So there is quite a lot of work that you need to do internally before you are in a position to really define the goals. And then the next step is to implement kind of a second process to then be able to cooperate and identify where reductions are possible. So this one was a very long and difficult one to get all this information. And another one, which is also very, I think, impressive, is the supply code of conduct, because there we started in 2019. And what we did there is that we took the most important suppliers to start and to exchange the supplier code of conduct, asking them to certify and sign it, or to send us their code of conduct, which would contain the same goals and ideas. And in 2019, it was, allow me to say, quite a cumbersome exercise, because sending out code, getting it back, sending reminders, etc., etc. And what we noticed this year, where we even increased the number of companies which we approached, it was much easier. And why? Because in the past 3 years, I think that the whole discussion on sustainability and how the industry can support has improved a lot. So the awareness when receiving such a request is much higher, and people are used to do this collaboration. And I think this is also one of the key topics that the industry needs to focus going forward, is really this collaboration, because as I said at the beginning, we cannot do it alone. So we have to work together.
Renzo, this is your opportunity. Are there certain categories, you don't have to mention companies, but are there certain categories that are lagging behind when it comes to the supplier code of conduct? And this is your opportunity to reach out and say, no, come on, we need more impetus from certain areas.
No, look, I couldn't say so. I mean, it's then more, let's say, individual answers that sometimes you get. We cannot sign it because of legal reasons and internal compliance guidelines, because we have our own conduct, etc., etc. But this is what I said, and they share their own code of conduct, and you see that it contains the same values, and then you cover the issue like that. So, but I couldn't say that there is a specific category or let's say geographic issues that we have seen.
But also, is this not an area where there could be more collaboration between the retailers, perhaps through the trade associations as well, on code of conduct? Because if Dufry are asking for a code of conduct, and Lagardère and other retailers, it's obviously creating a lot of work for suppliers. Is there not some homogeneity that can take place either between retailers or through the associations?
Well, I think, look, for sure there is a part of code of conduct which can be the same, let's say, the same for everybody. But on the other hand, I also think it's important to reflect the position of a company, because if you are a company that, let's call it, you are a pure retailer, you have some kind of issues. If you are a company that you are a retailer, but you also produce your own product, or you have private labels, then you have different kind of issues that you need to cover. So to have a code one size fits all, I'm not so sure if that would work.
Point. I think I wanted to move on to Melanie now, because again, I'm sure there's some of those topics that really chime with you, and you can understand the sort of, again, from a logistical point of view on its own, enormous amount of work to put in order to get, you know, people to work together in this industry. We hear that, we're going to hear this a lot this week. I know collaboration is going to come up again and again and again. And again, Renzo's just mentioned that the awareness, having said that, has definitely increased in recent times because of again, because of all of our awareness, I guess, but also the fact that consumers are putting pressure on our industry to again bring that about. Has that been your experience? Has it made it slightly easier for you to have these conversations with your partners?
Yes, for sure. No, we can definitely see that the awareness has increased, and that even over the last year, I would say we can really see the acceleration, be it also externally with our landlords, our partners, but also internally. I can see also that everyone is much more aware, and also not educated, but as also Renzo was saying, you know, all these topics are very complex, and when it comes to carbon reduction initiatives, it's very complex. It's very complex to understand, you know, all the ecosystem around it, and what you need to do to move the proper way. So yes, I can see that we are more and more robust on that, and that it will be easier, which is really reassuring too, regarding our ability to achieve the commitments we have made, but also overall the common goal we can all share, being citizens of this planet. So it's also reassuring from this standpoint. And yes, and again, even within, you know, whatever countries, we can see that, for example, Senegal for us in West Africa is as motivated as North America. So we can see also that, of course, they are not facing the same issues locally, but they are as motivated, you know, depending on the regions. And maybe what we could add, and also this is maybe something we could look at, is that all this, we are mentioning code of conduct and so on. Of course, big companies and big suppliers are very good at that. They know that they are structured also to face that, to release these kind of things. But when it comes to smaller suppliers, it's more difficult for them. So maybe this we would need also to address that, to see how we could ease their lives, because of course talking with Mars is very different than talking with a small producer of jams in Senegal. So of course we cannot ask them the same things. And at the same time, and as I was explaining earlier, in our strategy, for example, it's really about having more local products and local producers. And when you are doing that, of course, you are talking with smaller producers. So maybe here we need also to adapt a little bit what is asked to these companies. Again, we are using also EcoVadis, you know, as a big company, being able to do some kind of audits or certificates for suppliers, because we need also to make sure that all the suppliers we are working with are, you know, are aligned with our own code of conduct and strategy. But EcoVadis is something big, a huge and a little bit heavy process, and obviously not all the companies can face that. So maybe we would need also to adapt a little bit our demands, and yes, and the way we can help them also to achieve that.
I was going to say, actually, if you're a small supplier and you're watching this webinar, please do send in your questions for our panel today. I mean, that's what this week is all about. It's about learning and asking any questions you might have to learn more about the processes that are involved, or how you can perhaps improve processes you already have in place. So, Michael, please refresh my memory about how our audience members can do that.
Yeah, indeed. You've got the panel, the Q&A panel on the right. If you just click on the Q&A button, then you've got the Ask a Question button there, and we'll see that and put your questions to our panelists. And on that note, Charlotte, we've got a few coming in. If I can put one set for Melanie, but I think we should ask it to Melanie and Renzo. Melanie, Renzo, how are you working with suppliers on sustainability? Are you setting benchmarks, conditions, and deadlines, or is it more of a soft push? So Melanie, do you want to kick off with that?
Yes, well, for the time being, it's a soft push because I think we are also at a stage where we are also explaining, disclosing our strategy. We are also defining our own, our own definition of what is a sustainable or responsible products. And so we want also to have something very collaborative with our suppliers. So building that and building this kind of common referential in a way. And what we are planning to do, of course, is to be more and more demanding and to be more and more pushy in a way. And since we want to achieve in 2025 to have 100% of our suppliers having signed our own, our own responsible chart, so we will be even more demanding. But for the time being, yes, it's more collaborative.
Thanks. And Renzo, you mentioned the Sustainable Product Identification Initiative. Other than that, you can go into more detail on that, but other ways in which you are pushing your suppliers on the sustainability side?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we need to separate this a little bit. I mean, the Sustainable Product Initiative is basically trying to help the customer to better identify in the shop where they can find a sustainable product. So this is something which is done in collaboration with the suppliers. And I mean, the initiative which we launched last year, we covered 550 products were included, and they came from 13 suppliers. And they're basically, it's really a collaboration. So we approach the suppliers, but but we also get approached by the suppliers themselves, which have a new product, some ideas on how to present something new. So this is really a collaboration. And then when we come to the other side, to the code of conduct, etc. I mean, there also evidently it is a soft push, but we have defined this 3-year cycle where even somebody who has already signed it needs to re-sign it to make sure that it is not a one-off. And then we are currently trying to extend the reach of this certification. And I mean, you mentioned it's a lot of work for the suppliers, but we see that it also works the other way around, because we get the same requests also from the suppliers to make sure that we accept and we sign their code of conduct. So it's really this mutual necessity to have this kind of processes in place. So it's not just for the suppliers, it's also for us. And I mean, for us, on top of that, I would say, as we are a listed company, you get this kind of requests more and more also from the financial community. And the issue there is that, like I would say, a lot of companies as well, they have their own questionnaires that you then need to fill out. So also for us as a retailer, there is a lot of work behind in answering all those questions for topics that to put it simple, if you would read the ESG report, you find all the questions there, but it's easier to send your questionnaire and then to ask you to fill it out. So also for us, there is a lot of work behind it.
Indeed, on the financial aspect, that's an interesting point, because it was actually brought up in our closing keynote session last year. I think when it was Anson Bailey from KPMG Asia Pacific mentioned this, that investment companies are looking more and more closely into the sustainability guidelines, the sustainability principles and strategies of companies, and are being much more discerning before placing their money with certain companies. So yeah, the investment community is obviously going to be applying a lot of pressure on that. If I can come back, because there's another part of the question on the Sustainable Products Initiative, but what's the consumer response to this? Renzo, if you can.
So look, what we have seen is that, I mean, even before launching it, evidently, you could see from feedbacks which we receive in our own surveys, which we do on a regular basis with the customer coming out of the store, that sustainability has increased. You also have third-party surveys where you clearly see that importance has increased. And I mean, for us, the collaboration with the suppliers is ongoing, because we see that probably the best result that you can get is that sales have increased for the same products before and after introducing these initiatives. So the same product being identified as sustainable has increased the sales as compared to before. And I think this is the best answer that you can get from customers.
Absolutely, that's a really important point, and it kind of answers one that I asked at the beginning of the session, because again, a few travel retail companies said that they didn't think that consumers would pay more for sustainable products, but clearly there is evidence to support the contrary, which is good to hear. I was going to actually ask Marcus a couple of questions from your perspective, receiving requests such as the ones that have been brought up by Renzo and Melanie, I can imagine, or also there's some challenges involved in that, and obviously again, due to the scale of Mars, again there's another layer of complexity.
Yeah, sure. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I get to why, because one of the things of Mars being a private company is we have historically, you know, we don't necessarily have that commitment of being a listed company to publish everything, and therefore we've always been quite private, and we haven't been very proactive about sharing around our sustainability initiatives. You know, we haven't been very vocal in the past, and I think in a way we are, you know, what we see with the requests from customers and also the demands from consumers, we have a responsibility to actually just be more open about all of the things that we're doing. You know, that there was a phrase in Mars that was always, it was about what we're doing, it's not about us, so we don't really need to communicate it. But in reality, we see that commitment. And I think if you look in the press on Mars compared to a few years ago, you do see more, and you do see that we're talking more about it. What's interesting, I think, working as a supplier, then with a team of account managers with various retailers, is actually how do you enable an organization, you know, of salespeople working with our beautiful customers to actually enable these conversations around sustainability and actually have that dialogue. Because I think Renzo made an interesting point. You know, we would be asking for the sustainability credentials of our retailers because that's our commitment, and we get the other way around. And you read what's in both of these documents, it's actually pretty aligned, you know, actually where we are and what we're positioning. So I think what would be great from from Mars perspective is how can we carve out that time to actually have that dialogue around what we are working on sustainability. And I think there's a responsibility from us to share a bit more and to actually coach and train our teams to be able to have that appropriate conversation on sustainability, which is, it's a journey we're going on with Mars, coming from, as I said, quite a private, closed position. But yeah, really having that open dialogue and prioritizing the time around it, I think would be good.
How have consumers reacted to products or ranges that you've launched that are clearly sustainability at the forefront of your communication?
Yeah, no, very good one. I'd say, if you look on what we've been doing globally in Mars, a lot of our work hasn't yet filtered down to travel retail. So one of the trials that we've been doing is around fully paper-based packaging on our brand Ballisto in Germany, for example, where we did a trial and we've now sold over 1 million bars that's fully in paper-based packaging, which saved nearly 0.5 ton of plastic. And actually that was received very well. The same that we're doing in the US, where we actually have bioplastic on our M&M singles pouches that we're now doing a trial on. We do see that the consumers are really accelerating there. We do need to translate that more into what we're doing in travel retail, actually really on the shop floor with our brands and with our products. And that's a journey that we're going on to be able to do that. Some of the things that we are doing, I think, where we have had, when we've engaged with consumers in research and positive responses on, are, for example, I think they're two good examples, is firstly when we've changed our strategy on displays. So previously we were producing displays centrally and then shipping them all over the world. We've now moved in the last couple of years to a decentralized model there. So, we're not producing an M&M's display in China and shipping it to Brazil anymore. We were producing it locally. And that's something we are starting to engage more around. But what is also quite, many know that have worked with confection in the channel, might remember, if you go back 5 or 6 years ago, and then you look from a sustainability and then particularly on portfolio and health and well-being and responsible marketing, Mars used to be known for a lot of the dispenser ranges that we had in the store. So in essence, selling toys with chocolate inside them. And we made that decision in 2017 for 2018 to actually delist the whole side of this portfolio, which was a bit of an impact because people loved those M&M's toys, which are not available anymore. But we did have a marketing code. We do have a marketing code that says we shouldn't be marketing to children, actually, again, under the portfolio piece of our sustainable intergeneration plan. So that was actually quite well received in the end by the retailers and then by consumers that we're engaging with on the shop floor. When we often got questions, why do you not have those toys anymore? It's like, well, we don't sell confectionery to children. So I think that dialogue actually helped us, but it is a journey that, we're learning to do more and more, and we'll keep going on as well.
Please, to other panelists, feel free to jump in and ask your own questions at any time. I was just actually going to bring Tessa into the conversation now, and Marcus has mentioned the word journey quite a few times during the course of today's session, which is great because I think every single one of us is on a journey, and your company is able to help people progress in their journey towards more sustainable processes. So, I mean, what's your reaction to what you've heard so far? Are you encouraged by it, or are you thinking that, oh gosh, they should be much further along in their process? What's your reaction?
Well, I have to say, actually, I've been really impressed by what I have heard. A couple of things that really stood out for me. One, the sort of centrality of people in the conversation around sustainability, because I do think that sort of too much today arguably has been really kind of oriented around the planet. And I actually really believe that if you get truly diverse teams, then everything else will follow on from that. The sustainability conversations go from being a battle to just common sense when you have diverse voices in the room. I'm also sort of really, as a voracious consumer of chocolate, I'm absolutely thrilled to hear about paper packaging trials, and also sort of super curious actually to hear, I guess, that sort of reticence from Mars about really sort of pushing forward on this. And actually it's quite unusual because often in this space there's an awful lot of greenwashing, and that is equally something you've got to avoid. But I would be really, really encouraging all businesses in this space. It is an emergency. Right, during the war, and you need to be able to respond. And so I think it's really important to be on the front foot with communications here, but being really honest about that. People understand that you are on a journey, and what's really important is not sort of greenwashing and taking one small great initiative and putting it to the top of the pyramid and trying to live in the halo effect of that. That's obviously not the right way forward, but a really honest conversation. People understand this. I don't think we give the public enough credit for this. And in particular now, in every channel, they are hearing about the climate crisis. You watch television nowadays, you cannot go through a single commercial break without some reference to the climate crisis. And so I think it's imperative that businesses are on the front foot and proactively communicating their stance on this. Otherwise, it will look like people will assume that you're a laggard and you're doing nothing.
Totally agree with you there, Tessa. And more specifically about what your company does, if you can just let our audience members know, and I'm sure many of them would actually love to get in touch with you following this session, actually. Yeah,
hopefully, because there's a really sort of quick win for all of you in terms of having a massively positive impact in terms of tackling the sustainability of your business. And that is through preventing food waste. So there is nowhere near enough conversation about the problem of food waste specifically and its contributions to greenhouse gas emissions. So if it were to be a country, food waste would be the third largest source of greenhouse gas emissions after the USA and China. The emissions from food waste alone are between 8 to 10%, which is sort of 4 times the travel industry. And there's a collaborative piece of work by several hundred of the world's leading climate change scientists. It's called Project Drawdown, and they released their latest research. Unfortunately, it coincided with the outbreak of COVID, but they stack rank the top 100 solutions to the climate crisis. And in position number 1 is reducing food waste. And that comes above electric cars, above solar power, and above a plant-based diet. So that's really exciting. So if you're a business that has food waste anywhere in your supply chains, if you tackle that, you will have an enormously positive impact. So how does Olio help do that? We have an army of over 45,000 volunteers. So these are members of our community. You might recall me saying we've got 6 million people who have joined the Olio app. And what we do is we recruit these volunteers from our community. We train them online on our proprietary food safety management system, and then we match them with their local business location. So that could be a supermarket store, that could be a corporate canteen, it could be a hospital, a school, it could be a railway station. And that trained volunteer on their allotted time and day will pop out of their home across the road. They will go collect all of the unsold food from that business. They take it home, they add it to the app. Within minutes, that food is being requested, and minutes later, their neighbors are popping around and picking it up. So that takes that food that had been considered a waste stream in that business location to, on average, within 1 to 2 hours, being fully redistributed into multiple homes in the local community. So our largest clients are people such as Tesco, Compass Catering, Booker, but also within the travel retail sector specifically, we're working with Avanti, GWR, Eurostar, and Rail Gourmet. So yeah, having a really, really kind of positive impact in ensuring that food is redistributed and not thrown away.
Do you find that you come up against any similar, I won't say excuses, but complications when it comes to your conversations? You know, obviously for you, this totally makes sense, and you probably can't understand why people don't jump on board with you immediately. But you know, have you come up against the same obstacles again and again in conversations with companies, maybe in the travel industry specifically?
Yeah, so I think for a long time, if we're being really honest, the problem of food waste was not high up enough people's agenda. There were just too many other things that people were trying to solve. And specifically, actually, sort of plastic waste for the last couple of years has been sort of the number 1 issue. I should, though, to put food waste into context for you, let you know that 1 kilogram of food waste has the same CO2 emissions as 25,500 milliliter plastic bottles. Right, so it's pretty mind-blowing. So for a long time, it was very frustrating for us. You know, don't get me wrong, the plastic problem needs to be solved too, but food waste was coming much lower down the hierarchy. We have noticed a step change really since the beginning of last year, and in particular, it seems to have coincided with the concept of net zero really gaining widespread traction within the business industry. Now every business kind of worth its salt has a net zero plan, or they are working one up, and going through that kind of science-based approach has made them realize that actually solving the food waste problem needs to be a top priority. So to date, it's been a challenge of prioritization. The immediate sort of set of questions that we get straight off the bat are around the health and safety side of things. And we have spent 3.5 years building our food safety management system, working with a retained food safety lawyer with our primary authority, And it's been through the sort of legal and health and safety teams of organisations such as Tesco and Booker and Compass. So that's very, very much kind of up to scratch. Everything on Olio is fully traceable. All of our volunteers are trained and tested. And now really, we're just kind of scaling very, very rapidly. We've got an extremely full pipeline of businesses that want to work with us. So now recruitment is a real area of focus for us to scale up.
Tessa, you've got retailers and food companies here, and obviously Lagardère being a retailer and a food and beverage operator. Yeah. Could you just talk us through and talk them through how easy it is to come on board the Olio platform? What are the mechanics?
Yeah, so that's one of the beauties of our model, is precisely sort of the lack of sort of systems integration that is required, and the lack of sort of stress on the core day-to-day operations. So how it works is you will tell us the locations that you have, the times that you want a volunteer to come and collect the unsold food, so what time, what days of the week, and then on their allotted time and day, someone shows up and your staff just have to sort of hand that food over. So it's not a model whereby you have lots of random people coming into your locations at different times requesting this specific bit of food that perhaps they have prepaid for. This is just really a very simple sort of transaction at the end, just before store closing. Instead of that bag going off to sort of the waste contractors channels, it is handed over to our volunteers. And as I say, that everything on Olio is fully traceable. So we can identify, all the food comes onto the system, and then we can see exactly where it goes to, who it goes to. And also we share back with our clients their impact data, which is something that is really powerful, because we're hearing that not only net zero is a motivator for businesses, but also employee morale and retention. Because in this day and age, in particular, as we've got the cost of living crisis unfolding and concerns of global food crisis, people are getting more and more dispirited about being paid to throw away perfectly good food when they know that a solution like Olio exists. So staff are getting really, really engaged with being able to ensure that this food is eaten, and we give back your impact data. We tell you how many portions of food you've saved, how many families you have fed, the carbon emissions, how many liters of water you have saved. And that's all very, very powerful for employees. And also some of our clients taking those communications into social media and also into their stores. And so letting their customers know that this is a zero food waste location.
And for the benefit of the viewers, food companies, F&B operators watching, what's the footprint today? How regionally represented are you?
Yeah, so Olio as a platform with the Food Waste Heroes program, so this is what we call it. We are up and running in the UK and in Ireland, in Singapore, and then also in Latin America. And we're in some conversations with a number of our more global clients this is working really well. So they are now wanting us to expand with them across their global footprint. And so those sort of internationalization conversations beyond Singapore and Latin America are very live.
And what's the barrier to expanding regionally? Is it just
it's just resources and translations on our side. So at the moment, everything is available in the English language and also the Spanish language. And so it's quite a big step for us to take to then sort of translate into every market. It's something that absolutely we will be doing. It's just a matter of when, not if.
And what about supply and demand? Are you seeing a variation from one region to another in terms of the supply and demand?
Great question. So a lot of people, when they look at Olio and this model, they assume that demand must be the constraint, and that could not be further from the truth. So half of all the food added to the Olio app is requested within 21 minutes. So, and often, especially food that comes in from the retail sector, it is in exceptionally high demand. It's often on the app for seconds, quite literally, before it is being requested. So our number one challenge, we've built this incredibly efficient, hyperlocal, real-time redistribution model. Our number one challenge now is just getting more supply onto the platform.
Wow, that's really interesting. That it's that way around. You would again, people would assume probably the opposite. I saw Melanie earlier on, and she also mentioned in what she said that there was this regional difference and to sustainability, and I think that we can probably all agree that those differences pervade. Melanie, I thought you could perhaps potentially expand on that and what that means for Lagardère in terms of improving its sustainability.
Yes, for sure, and but yes, maybe first also to answer in a way to Tessa. Yes, of course, it's wastage and limiting or avoiding any wastage is crucial, and yes, we are working hard also on that because yes, we are also acting on food service, and on that I would say that there is no differences between the regions because everyone is fully aware and really motivated on that. And I can only agree on the fact that not only us, and it's not a corporate topic. It's really also something that matters a lot for the staff, and so they are very engaged on that. And Charlotte, to come back on your questions, or yes, depending on the differences also between the regions, I would say that here we really need to have in mind well the whole scope of sustainability. I mentioned to start as a start, you know, these 4 pillars: so planet, ethics, people, and social. And we can really see that depending on the regions, some of the countries are more in advance or more motivated or aware, you know, for some topics. For example, in Europe, that's for sure, the planet pillar is really at the top of the agenda. In the US, as I was saying earlier, yes, everything around people, diversity and inclusion, they are very, very motivated about that. It's really well, and of course, we can only understand that, you know, based on the recent things that happened there. You know, mentioning Black Lives Matter, for example, it was something that really was very important for them, and so they have to. They wanted really to act on that. In Singapore or in Asia, it's really a lot about everything linked with social topics. But at the end of the day, they are all acting, you know, on the different pillars of sustainability. But yes, we can see that some regions are more in advance, which is good because we can also, you know, split a little bit the responsibilities, you know, of moving ahead on all these pillars, because obviously we cannot do everything, you know, at a corporate level and at the headquarters. So, and it's really the way also we are organized, being able to give the responsibility of each commitment, for example, to a specific person, to a specific country, to help all of us, you know, to achieve at the end our goals. And we really believe that it's also acting like that through, you know, a very structured governance, but empowering our different countries, that we will be really stronger, and that we will really, you know, move forward at the right pace, because it's very yeah, we need to speed up.
Absolutely. And Renzo, do you have that experience, and what sort of barriers does that create for Dufry kind of rolling out global initiatives when it comes to sustainability?
Well, I would say it depends a little bit on which kind of initiative, because some of the initiatives you can plan, and then yes, you need to adapt a little bit, but basically it's the same idea. So if we come to the substitution of our plastic bags, we have decided that we want to substitute, and we then have developed proposals which the countries can implement. I mean, the biggest, let's say, challenge has been there that we said we don't want to just throw away the plastic bags which we have in our on stock. So we first want to use them, and once it's used, we make the switch country by country. And we have defined biodegradable solutions and paper as a basis. And then depending on the country, we implement it. So this is something I would say you can do from a central perspective. What is also pretty centralized, for example, is in the area of shop development, shop design, use of low consumption materials, lighting, single material shelves that you can recycle easier. So these kind of activities you can decide at the group level, and then yes, you need to develop guidelines, which then locally once you have your local teams implementing it, then they have to follow the centralized guidelines, and this is the way we are following there. But then when it comes to diversity and inclusion, as we heard before, in different areas of the world, you have different topics prevailing. And there as well, I mean, after the survey, which we did in November, we developed call it the group strategy, which is then broken down to the region or even the specific countries, all following one mainstream, but then taking into account the local issues. And so this is more, I would say, a mix where you then cascade the activities within the organization. And I mean, the D&I committee, which we have, reflects not only different functions, it also reflects people working in different environments. So we have people from the shop floor, we have people from warehouses, offices, different regions of the world. And then we have a kind of a wider group of the committee, which is now being built, where we then really try to scale down and cascade these initiatives that are taken at that group level into the local area, giving as much as possible a possibility to adapt locally, but still trying to keep everybody in the same direction within a given framework, so that we don't lose control of what we are doing in the different areas. And ultimately, it has to feed into the overall D&I strategy, which we have at group level. And the same is for other initiatives, also within the planet or environment. We take the same approach.
For the viewers that are worried that perhaps we're not touching enough on diversity, inclusion and equity, and also health and wellbeing, we do have dedicated sessions for those topics as we will go on this week, and I'm sure it will come up in more conversations later on. I was going to say, Michael, do we have any more questions that perhaps our wonderful panelists can address?
Yeah, indeed. I was going to say the same thing on D&I, and Melanie's colleague Kathleen. She mentioned is going to be going into that tomorrow in the D&I session at 2 p.m. Yes, we do have quite a number of questions still pending. One here has just come in. Do Dufry and Lagardère have any particular expectations for brand owners regarding sustainability beyond what has already been discussed? And what would Dufry and Lagardère expect from suppliers going forward regarding sustainability? So throw that, Renzo, as you had your mic open. Do you want to answer that?
Well, I think I told the expectation at the beginning. What we need is the collaboration. It's a lot of work for everybody. But I think that aligning and trying to build these processes in a way that they become a recurring element of our daily business, as we do for other areas, I don't know, paying invoices, sending offers, etc. So I think this would be a big step that can really establish the sustainability movement initiative in a sustainable way going forward.
Sorry, and while you're got the mic, another question earlier came in. When will we see more space devoted to brands that are more sustainably sourced, produced, and packaged in the duty-free shops? That's to you, Renzo, again, and I'll come to you, Melanie, afterwards with those two.
So as I said before, I mean, we have started now with this initiative in the second half of last year. We are permanently assessing the development, and the intention is to expand it further. But I cannot give you, I don't know, square meter percentage per shop, which will be then dedicated to sustainable products, because that depends on the location. It depends on the typology of customers that you have. But in any case, we want to continue expanding it. And all I can say, if suppliers have a specific idea on or a new product that they want to present, I guess my colleagues from the procurement department, they are happy to listen.
Great, thanks. And Melanie, can you address those two questions?
Yes, for sure. So maybe first, in terms of expectations, the expectations that we may have so versus our suppliers, our partners. Well, as it has been said, so I think the most important thing is, of course, collaboration. And then I would add also information. Why? Is because all of us are doing many things, but what is not very easy, on a daily basis, is really to understand, to be informed, at the right moment of what is being done by our partners. And for us, to reflect that, also to integrate that both in our assortments or in the information we can give to our customers. And so because so many things, and which is great, are being done everywhere, that it's not so easy for our suppliers, for our brands to give us the information and for us to digest it and to give it to the customer. So it's really also how we can share on a smoother way the information. Regarding the space dedicated to brands and to more sustainable products, or I would say same answer. On our side, we have launched a label that is called We Care, We Do. That is for us the way to better highlight for the customers the most responsible products, whatever the categories. And so yes, we will also propose dedicated spaces or some specific communication on these products. Difficult to say, what in terms of figures, the square meters that will be dedicated to that. It's also something we are still thinking about, how to show that to the customers. Should it be a dedicated space? We have some in some places, or should it be everywhere? Because it's also maybe what is expected by our customers. The goal for us is, at the end of the day, is to really be able to give a choice to the customers to choose the products that answer the best to their expectations, and to be able to communicate the needed information to the customers.
So, and that really interesting question just came in about the choice. Are you seeing an increase in demand from consumers for the more sustainable options in your stores? And are the staff actually trained up to communicate on the sustainable portfolio to consumers more as well? Melanie, what do you?
Yes, I think they are asking for more and more of these products, but they are also asking for some more information, about what is done for each product. Because as I was saying, a lot of brands are doing things, but it's the way also we are able to give this information that is key for us, and it's really about that, how be able to reflect that. And because we believe it's also in our role to do that. And it's also our role in the collaboration we have with our suppliers, our partners. It's really about that. So how to be able to convey their message to the final customers. So it's really key. And so we try to do that. Yes, thanks to this label we can redo, for example, or with some in-store communication for customers to better highlight the qualities or the criteria of the products. And so we're talking about duty-free, but when it comes to food, for example, yes, again, it's also a way to communicate on the way we are sourcing the products, where they are coming from, and it's a national, if we are in France, or French product, but then, you know, it really comes down to the region and to the kilometers around an airport or around an hospital, because we are also operating there. You know, they want to know where the products are coming from. So it's really a matter of information. And tomorrow, I'm sure our customers, they will expect that maybe most of our products will be sustainable at some point.
Marcus, you touched on the increase in demand in different regional markets from consumers. How are you seeing the consumer uptake for your more sustainable product and packaging?
Yeah, it's interesting in Mars to talk regions, because, as I say, when you take a global approach, then with a vision of the world that we want tomorrow, starts with how we do business today. In a way, I'd say we don't overly regionally differentiate from a consumer perspective, really, on and what we expect our markets and our units to deliver, because we all expect them to be in line with, you know, our sustainable and a generation strategy. So for us, that regional differentiation is not, I'd say, take D&I, for example. You know, we don't distinguish the D&I policy per region, that we have actually a D&I policy about gender balance on leadership teams that is relevant to whichever market you are part of. And that's really measured on a quarterly basis on how markets are performing in terms of gender balanced leadership. And so that's just an example where, you know, I say, because we take a global approach at scale, you know, I think we do have to be empathic to different regions and different regional challenges. At the same time, you know, our sustainable in a generation program and its demands is rolled out globally. So, you know, at a regional level, it's just to a certain extent to find a way, and our measurement does not necessarily take into account regional differences. It just looks at, you know, where different regional levels on our measurements are. So we try not to differentiate, but at a regional level too much.
Thanks very much, Marcus. We're coming shortly to the close of our session, but before we do that, I wanted to come to each of you, as we did warn you earlier, that we might. Last year, we made some great progress in the inaugural Travel Retail Sustainability Week, and there were lots of dynamic conversations had immediately after sessions and immediately after the week, where people actually did make some concrete or take concrete actions to improve in certain areas. So this year, to kind of progress on what we achieved in the first Travel Retail Sustainability Week, we wanted to ask each of our panelists before the end of our sessions what they might do in terms of next steps. Now, it doesn't have to be something you know, wildly expensive or, you know, or rolled out globally as a new initiative announced right now. I mean, we don't expect that from you, but it'd be good to see what your plans are, what your thinking is. Maybe perhaps there's an idea that's been shared during this session that you might act on following this, and you know, shoot further up the management chain, or perhaps maybe filter it down to some of your employees. Anything to do with that would be greatly appreciated if you could share now. Now, I'd like to actually, to be honest with you, I'd actually quite like to go to Tessa first. We haven't heard from you for a little while. Now, obviously, your remits are very different to the other panelists, but I'd still like to hear perhaps your next steps or plans or actionable insight.
The immediate next step is reaching out to several of the other panelists with further information about our Food Waste Heroes programme, because I believe we can help them achieve their objectives with regards to reducing waste. So for sure, I'll be doing that. But I think the broader point coming out of this is that in many ways, sort of the sweet spot for sustainability action is the intersection of innovative startups who often have the solutions and partnering with large established sort of corporates that have the scale and have the route to market, because I don't believe that either party alone can have the impact that they want. But if we sort of combine forces, that innovation with the route to market, that's when I think we'll see true transformation and sustainability happen at scale.
And we hope to facilitate that again and again this week. We know not to blow our trumpet as TR Business, but we really hope we can facilitate that again this year. Marcus, I'd like to come on to you next.
Yeah, I think there are two interesting takeaways for me, and Tessa, I really liked the way you put it after my story about Mars kind of being private, and it's more about, what we do and not talking about it, that in a way humility, that actually there is a responsibility and we need to respect consumers sufficiently that they should be really aware of all the stuff that we're doing. Us being proud of it ourselves is probably not enough, so we need to actually expand that further. So I really like that encouragement. I think in another perspective, Mars is always looking to partner up with organizations, as I say, moving from an inherently private way of doing things to actually a broader responsibility. So I again, Tessa, I think it's probably a reverse of what you just said, to maybe see if we could start up a connection and whether or not there's anything in that space we can do. We partner up on diversity and inclusion. We're doing research with Oxford University and the Side Business School to actually really support us there in campaigns under our people piece of our sustainable generation plan. We're working with Care International there really as a partner. So, I need to keep that dialogue going on any partners where we can really properly collaborate and work together, and join forces would love to have. So Tessa, I'll be reaching out to you proactively if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Thanks, Marcus. And Renzo?
Well, I would say from our side, as I said at the beginning, one of the main initiatives last year was to define the emission reduction goals. And so one task will be to do a lot of work internally to establish these processes and collaboration, especially for, let's say, scope 3 with suppliers and logistic service providers, to really create the base to then be able to reach the goals which we have defined. The next step, also very important for us, is diversity and inclusion. I mean, we have asked our employees where we stand, how they see the topic within Dufry. We have received clear inputs, and the answers or the initiatives are now being developed and to be implemented in 2022. So this is more on the internal side. And then also externally, we want to drive and accelerate this the substitution of the plastic bags, because now that we see traffic improving, we also would expect that consumption of the remaining plastic bags is increasing and allowing us to then really do this substitution in a faster way.
Fantastic, thank you, Renzo. And finally, Melanie.
Yes, maybe, and because I know that some other people from the organization will tackle some other priorities. Well, at least my priorities for the next weeks, months, is really about carbon reduction strategy. So I mentioned that we are making some very ambitious commitments on this one. And to really achieve that, and again, it was, I think, one of the key words today, it's a lot about partnering, working together. And here I would like also to share maybe one takeaway I had last week, because we organized, well, internally, it was a roundtable during a conference in France. So we gathered the companies, so obviously Air France, an international airport, so Nice Côte d'Azur airport, a brand, it was L'Occitane, and obviously us as a travel retail operator. And the main takeaway, and I think it could be the same today, is really that we are all acting, we are all doing a lot of things, but maybe also to be as efficient as needed regarding the emergency would be really to be able to align, you know, the priorities we are all working on. So to have a common agenda to make sure that we are going in the right direction and as fast as needed. And I think it's really about that, also communicating all together and working together.
Yes, communicating on a global agenda is definitely something I think is a salient point to finish this on. In terms of communication, I just like to remind everybody that trbusiness.com does in fact have a sustainability section dedicated to everything when it comes to news about this broad topic, including diversity, equity and inclusion and health and well-being, actually on the site. If you just obviously it's on the menu, the main menu, so that if you're looking for anywhere for inspiration or best practice examples, you can find it all there on trbusiness.com. We also launched last week, we launched our first sustainability issue, so a whole e-zine dedicated to talking all about sustainability issues. Thank you to Marcus, Renzo and Melanie for contributing to that. It really is a fantastic issue. We're very, very proud of it, and it really highlights all the fantastic initiatives that are already going on, but also the ways in which the industry clearly identifies that it needs to do more in certain areas. So that can also be viewed through our website, and also we've sent you a link to that directly through our mass mailer system. So all that's left for me to do is say thank you to all our superb panelists. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear from you today, and I've certainly learned an awful lot. And I guess my action points from this point forward are to take all my notes and regurgitate them into some coverage for the website, so I can communicate that with everybody in the industry. And indeed, all of you that are able to facilitate conversations after this, please do send us anything that be able to take forward, and we'd love to write a news story and give you the coverage that you deserve on trbusiness.com. So thank you, heartfelt from me. And now I'd like to pass on to Michael to finish.
Yes, thanks, Charlotte. And my quick takeouts from this is I really look forward to reading and hearing more about the collaborations between Olio, Mars, and Lagardère, Dufry, and many others in the industry who Tessa contacts and who contacts Tessa. And it would be great that we can say you heard it here first. Also, although Melanie touched on aligning between stakeholders, Renzo pointed out some of the challenges to that. And even though the industry associations already have their work cut out with all the various work that they're on, including codes of conduct, I think this is an area where there's certainly the associations have their work cut out, and this as well, in coming up with some alignment and codes of conduct for the retailers, suppliers to work on sustainability initiatives. And we'll hear more about what the associations have in store later this week when Nuno de Amaral from Arianta, but also a board member of APTRA, will be talking about APTRA's sustainability program on Friday in one of the closing keynote sessions. So I'd just like to say thank you to all our speakers also, but also once again to our sponsors, Mars, Diageo and JTI, for sponsoring this session, and of course Mars for being our headline sponsor. Just a quick reminder that this session, as all sessions, will be available on demand not too long after on this platform where you've accessed it already, about half an hour to an hour after the session ends, but also on the TR Business YouTube channel from next week onwards, roughly in the next few days, as last year's sessions are available on demand to everybody. So we'll see you not just throughout later this week, but we're also going to be seeing, I'll just flag some of the events we've got coming up. We'll see you in Singapore for the TFWA Asia Pacific event, where we're curating the Sustainable Future session. We'll see you in the June webinars on diversity and inclusion and health and well-being. More information on that coming soon. We'll see you in Cyprus, hopefully, as well, for the Travel Retail Consumer Forum for the 5th to the 7th of September, kindly supported by Cyprus Duty Free. And of course, we'll see you all in Cannes for the Travel Retail Awards. So make sure you get your nominations, including for the Sustainable Best Sustainable Supplier, into the Travel Retail Awards, which are underway now. Deadline is coming up end of May. So thanks all once again, and see you later and throughout this week. Take care. Bye-bye.